Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone in a quiet room. The air is thick with unspoken tension. Maybe it's a colleague, a friend, a partner, someone you trust or think you do. But something feels off. Their words are smooth, their smile practiced, but beneath the surface, you sense invisible strings being pulled. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you know you're not the one holding the power. This is the world of the manipulator, the invisible puppeteer who shapes your thoughts, nudges your decisions, and bends reality to their will, all while remaining hidden in plain sight. Most of us like to believe we're immune to such influence, that we can spot a manipulator from a mile away. But the truth is far more unsettling. Manipulators thrive in the shadows, exploiting our blind spots, our trust, and even our own self-doubt. But what if you could turn the tables? What if, in just 2 minutes, you could force the manipulator to reveal themselves? What if there was a centuries-old psychological trick whispered about in the corridors of power and attributed to the legendary Machiavelli himself, that could expose the hidden hand behind the curtain? Tonight, we're going to pull back that curtain. We'll explore the secret world of manipulation, the subtle games of power that shape our lives, and the ancient wisdom that can help us see the unseen. Are you ready to question everything you thought you knew about trust, influence, and control? Because once you see the strings, you can never unsee them. Manipulation is as old as humanity itself, a shadow that follows us through every era, every culture, every relationship. But what makes it so powerful? Why do even the most intelligent, self-aware people fall prey to its subtle touch? To understand manipulation, we must first peer into the darker corners of the human psyche. Psychologists call it Machiavellianism, a personality trait named after Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker who wrote The Prince, a manual for rulers on how to wield power through cunning and deceit. But Machiavellianism is just one part of what experts call the dark triad, a trio of personality traits that also includes narcissism and psychopathy. Together, these traits form the psychological blueprint of the master manipulator. Manipulators are skilled social engineers. They know how to read people, how to sense weakness, and how to exploit the invisible rules that govern human interaction. They prey on our cognitive biases, those mental shortcuts that help us make sense of the world, but also leave us vulnerable to suggestion. Confirmation bias, authority bias, the need for social approval. These are the levers manipulators pull to guide our thoughts and actions without us ever realizing it. But manipulation isn't just a personal game. It's a force that shapes history. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, power was a deadly dance of alliances, betrayals, and whispered secrets. A single rumor, planted at the right moment, could topple a dynasty. Fast forward to the modern era, and the tactics have evolved, but the game remains the same. Political scandals, corporate cover-ups, media spin. Manipulation is the invisible hand steering the course of nations and the fate of individuals. Yet, for all its power, manipulation often goes unnoticed. Why? Because it hides in plain sight, cloaked in charm, authority, or even apparent vulnerability. Most of us don't want to believe we're being manipulated. It's uncomfortable. It challenges our sense of autonomy and control. But if we're honest, we've all felt it. The uneasy sense that someone is nudging us, shaping our choices, making us doubt ourselves. Maybe it was a boss who always got their way, a friend who played the victim, or a partner who twisted words until you questioned your own reality. This is the anatomy of manipulation, a dance of shadows in the human mind. And until we learn to see those shadows, we remain at their mercy. That's why we need a method, a way to bring the manipulator into the light. To truly understand the art of exposing a manipulator, we must turn to one of history's most enigmatic minds, Niccolò Machiavelli. To some, he was a ruthless schemer, the very embodiment of political cunning. To others, he was a keen observer of human nature, a man who saw through the illusions of power and influence. But beyond the myths and the infamy, Machiavelli left us with something far more valuable, a blueprint for seeing through deception. Legend has it that Machiavelli, during his time as a diplomat in the treacherous courts of Renaissance Italy, was once confronted by a rival who sought to undermine him. The rival was charming, persuasive, and seemed to have everyone's trust. But Machiavelli sensed something beneath the surface, a hidden agenda, a carefully constructed mask. Rather than confront his adversary directly, Machiavelli employed a deceptively simple tactic. He waited for a moment of casual conversation, then posed a question that seemed innocent, even flattering. If you were in my position, what would you do next? The question was a trap, but not in the way you might expect. It forced the manipulator to step out of their rehearsed role, to improvise, to reveal how they truly thought and what they truly wanted. In that moment of unscripted response, the mask slipped. The rival's answer betrayed his ambitions, his fears, and his true loyalties. This is Machiavelli's trick, a psychological lever that disrupts the manipulator's carefully crafted narrative. Manipulators thrive on control. They script their interactions, anticipate your reactions, and guide the conversation toward their desired outcome. But when you introduce an unexpected variable, a question or statement that doesn't fit their script, you force them into unfamiliar territory. They must improvise, and in doing so, they reveal the very motives they sought to conceal. The mechanics behind this are rooted in psychology. Manipulators rely on cognitive consistency. They need their story to make sense, both to themselves and to others. When confronted with a question that creates cognitive dissonance, an internal conflict between their intentions and their outward persona, they experience a momentary lapse. Their ego, their need for control, compels them to respond, but the response is often unguarded, revealing the truth beneath the performance. It's a technique as old as intrigue itself, yet as effective today as it was in Machiavelli's time. Whether in a boardroom, a political debate, or a personal relationship, the trick works because it leverages the manipulator's greatest weakness, their belief in their own superiority. They think they can outsmart you, that they hold all the cards. But with one well-placed question, you can turn the tables, forcing them to show their hand. As we unravel the layers of this ancient strategy, the suspense builds. What if you could use this knowledge in your own life? What if, the next time you sense manipulation, you could make the mask slip, if only for a moment, and see the truth that lies beneath? Why does Machiavelli's trick work so powerfully, even centuries after it was first conceived? The answer lies deep within the architecture of a human mind, a place where instinct, emotion, and reason collide. At its core, the trick exploits a fundamental psychological phenomenon: projection. Manipulators are masters at projecting a carefully curated image, one that hides their true intentions behind a mask of charm, authority, or vulnerability. But when you disrupt their narrative with an unexpected question, you force them to improvise. In that moment, their projection falters, and the real self, the one they work so hard to conceal, begins to leak through. This is where micro-expressions come into play. Pioneering research by psychologist Paul Ekman revealed that our faces betray us in fleeting, involuntary flashes, tiny muscle movements that last only a fraction of a second. When a manipulator is caught off guard, their face may reveal a flicker of anxiety, contempt, or even anger before they regain composure. These micro-expressions are the cracks in the mask, the subtle signals that something isn't right. But the psychological mechanics go even deeper. When a manipulator's control is threatened, the body's stress response is triggered. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, floods the body with adrenaline. Heart rate quickens, palms sweat, and the mind races to regain control. Under this pressure, even the most skilled manipulator can slip, revealing inconsistencies in their story or betraying their true motives through tone, body language, or choice of words. Classic psychological experiments shed light on this dynamic. In the infamous Milgram experiment, ordinary people were pushed to their ethical limits by an authority figure, revealing how easily control can be asserted and lost. The Stanford prison experiment showed how quickly people adopt roles and how fragile those roles become when the script is disrupted. These studies remind us that, under pressure, The human mind is both resilient and vulnerable, capable of astonishing adaptation, but also prone to collapse when its narrative is challenged. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Functional MRI scans show that when people are forced to improvise under social threat, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought, battles with the limbic system, which governs emotion and instinct. The result is a momentary cognitive overload, a split second where the truth can slip out before the mind regains its grip. Of course, the trick has its limits. Some manipulators, especially those high in psychopathy, are so practiced at deception that even the most cunning question may not faze them. Others may simply deflect, stonewall, or double down on their narrative. And there are ethical considerations. Using psychological tactics to expose someone can be a form of manipulation itself, raising questions about intent and responsibility. Yet, when used with care and awareness, Machiavelli's trick is a powerful tool for self-defense, a way to pierce the fog of deception and reclaim agency in a world where power often hides in the shadows. It's not about playing games. It's about seeing clearly, thinking critically, and refusing to be a pawn in someone else's story. In the centuries since Machiavelli's time, the art of manipulation has not faded. It has evolved, multiplied, and embedded itself into the very fabric of our modern world. Today, the invisible puppeteers are no longer just courtiers whispering in the shadows of palaces. They're CEOs in glass towers, politicians on campaign trails, influencers with millions of followers, and even the algorithms that shape what we see and believe online. Consider the boardroom, where power games are played with corporate jargon and strategic ambiguity. Here, manipulation is often cloaked in the language of leadership and vision. A charismatic executive might rally a team with grand promises, only to shift blame when things go wrong. Subtle cues, who gets invited to meetings, whose ideas are praised or ignored, signal who truly holds power. The tactics are timeless. Divide and conquer, play rivals against each other, reward loyalty, punish dissent. The stakes may be profit and prestige instead of thrones and kingdoms, but the psychological dynamics remain eerily familiar. But the digital age has given rise to a new breed of manipulator, one who operates at scale, often anonymously and with unprecedented reach. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok are battlegrounds for influence, where narratives are crafted, amplified, and weaponized. Here, manipulation is algorithmic. Content is engineered to provoke outrage, fear, or desire, exploiting our cognitive biases for clicks and shares. Viral misinformation campaigns, whether orchestrated by state actors, corporations, or lone provocateurs, can sway elections, incite violence, or erode trust in institutions. Take, for example, the case of Cambridge Analytica, where personal data harvested from millions of Facebook users was used to micro-target political ads, subtly shaping opinions and behaviors without the subject's awareness. Or consider the rise of deepfakes, AI-generated videos that can make anyone appear to say or do anything, blurring the line between reality and fabrication. In this landscape, the manipulator is often invisible, their motives obscured by layers of technology and plausible deniability. Even influencers, those seemingly authentic voices sharing their lives online, can be master manipulators, curating personas and narratives to sell products, ideas, or lifestyles. The line between genuine connection and calculated influence grows ever thinner, leaving audiences to wonder, who is pulling the strings? The consequences are profound. Manipulation at this scale doesn't just shape individual choices. It can sway public opinion, destabilize democracies, and fracture societies. The same psychological levers Machiavelli observed in Renaissance courts are now being pulled by bots, brands, and billionaires, all vying for our attention and allegiance. As we navigate this digital labyrinth, the challenge is not just to spot manipulation in others, but to recognize how we ourselves are being shaped by the stories we consume, the platforms we trust, and the unseen hands guiding our perceptions. In a world where everyone is both a target and a potential manipulator, The need for critical thinking has never been greater. So, how can you use Machiavelli's trick in your own life? Ethically, intelligently, and with self-awareness? Here's a step-by-step guide to turning the tables on manipulation while staying true to your own values. Step 1. Preparation. Know your context. Before you even think about deploying the trick, take a step back. Who are you dealing with? What's at stake? Are you in a workplace, a personal relationship, or an online interaction? The more you understand the dynamics at play, the better you can tailor your approach. Remember, this isn't about winning or humiliating someone. It's about clarity and self-protection. Step 2. Observation. Read the room. Pay close attention to the manipulator's patterns. How do they steer conversations? What topics make them uncomfortable? Watch for micro-expressions, shifts in tone, or sudden defensiveness. These are your cues that something is being concealed. Step 3. Delivery. The disarming question. When a moment feels right, introduce your question. It should be open-ended, non-confrontational, and framed as genuine curiosity. For example, if you were in my position, what would you do? What do you think is the best way forward for both of us? How would you handle this if our roles were reversed? The goal is to gently disrupt their script, not to attack or accuse. Step 4. Interpretation. Watch and listen. Now observe their response. Do they hesitate, deflect, or become defensive? Do their words and body language align? Or is there a disconnect? A manipulator caught off guard may reveal their true intentions through a slip of the tongue, a flash of emotion, or an unguarded admission. Step 5. Reflection. Act with integrity. Once you have your answer, reflect on what you've learned. Don't rush to judgment or confrontation. Sometimes, the trick simply confirms your suspicions. Other times, it reveals a more complex truth. Use this knowledge to make informed decisions about trust, boundaries, and next steps. A word of caution. This technique is powerful, but it's not a weapon. Used carelessly, it can escalate conflict, damage relationships, or backfire if the manipulator senses your intent. Always weigh the risks and consider the ethical implications. Are you seeking truth or just trying to outmaneuver someone? The line between self-defense and manipulation is thin. Ultimately, Machiavelli's trick is about reclaiming agency in a world full of hidden agendas. Use it wisely, and you may find not only the truth about others, but a deeper understanding of yourself. As we reach the end of our journey, a deeper question lingers. What does it mean to live in a world where manipulation is woven into the very fabric of our existence? Is it possible to ever truly know another's intentions, or even our own? Philosophers have wrestled with these questions for centuries. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that there are no facts, only interpretations, suggesting that truth itself is always filtered through layers of perspective, desire, and power. Michel Foucault took this further, arguing that power is not just held by individuals or institutions, but circulates through every relationship, every conversation, every unspoken rule. Power, for Foucault, is everywhere, and so, too, is the potential for manipulation. Hannah Arendt, reflecting on the darkest chapters of human history, cautioned that the greatest danger is not always the obvious tyrant, but the slow erosion of truth itself. When manipulation becomes normalized, when lies are repeated until they sound like common sense, society loses its anchor, and individuals lose their sense of agency. Yet, there's hope in awareness. To see the strings is not to become paranoid or cynical, but to become awake. The more we understand the mechanics of manipulation, the less power it has over us. We may never be able to escape the games of influence entirely, but we can choose how we play. We can question, observe, and refuse to be passive participants in someone else's narrative. This is the paradox of the human condition. We are both the puppets and the puppeteers, shaped by forces we barely understand, yet capable of reflection, resistance, and change. The trick, as Machiavelli and the philosophers remind us, is not to seek perfect certainty, but to cultivate a vigilant mind, a mind that asks, whose story am I living? Whose interests are being served? So, as you step back into the world, Remember, the shadows are always there, but so is the light of critical thought. Question what you see. Listen for the unsaid. Seek truth, even when it hides behind a mask. In a world of invisible puppeteers, awareness is your first act of freedom. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows of power and perception. As you leave, consider, how many times have you been the puppet? And how often the puppeteer? What unseen forces shape your choices, your beliefs, your reality? If this exploration sparked your curiosity, dive deeper with our videos on psychological warfare, the philosophy of power, and the hidden architecture of influence. The world is full of masks and mirrors. Will you look closer? Will you dare to see what lies beneath? Until next time, keep questioning and keep seeking the truth.